Awesome. Hello again. You have to deal with me. So before we get into the real fun stuff, I wanted to follow up on a few questions from previous conversation and then some of the workshop stuff that we were doing earlier. So someone asked about OpenAI integration, security methods. So right now we use a generic OpenAI API connector for app integration. No data is passed other than requests. Also, according to OpenAI, they state that all API calls are not used to train the model, i.e. the data is not stored in OpenAI, but I'm sure our security guy who just went that will be like, I don't know, trust that. So yeah, it's, take that for what it's worth. We are only, we're passing a very limited amount of information there. And as of right now, the app generation app is available on the marketplace. The trial you can go download right now if you wanted to. And right now it is free. As we continue to roll out capabilities for it, as it develops, I think it'll turn into a paid model, but that is where we're at right now with that. Cool. And also a lot of questions about people who have historical licensing in the financial services space and how new licensing is impacted. I just referenced the link. You all are getting these slides afterwards, so it's all on our website. But if you have questions on is lead management, is case management included in what financial services product, all of that will be on there. There's a little bit of debate how accurate the website is right now. So I'm currently working through all of that, but directionally, that is going to be the right case. But as always, reach out to your account manager, customer success manager if you have any questions on anything with that. Cool. Okay, so we work a lot with some research firms, especially as we're kind of thinking about our verticalization as an organization. And I know there's a lot of words on the screen right now. I have some easy bullet points here in a second, but Cellent is one of those that we work with to kind of better understand where the financial service industry is going in general in terms of their IT initiatives. So for those of you who are in the banking or credit union space, I'd love for your input here just to see if you're seeing a similar alignment at your respective institutions. We just got this report pretty recently, and they gave us a briefing of the data on it. And I found it to be really interesting. And so what we're looking at right here is historically, again, we're pretty much done with 2023. But as we were looking at the intent for budgeted initiatives in 2023, the top three drivers of that strategy all had to do with greater speed and agility. So what the data, to break it down, was all retail banking respondents took a survey, and then they tiered. Rank 1 is in blue, rank 2 is in orange, rank 3 is in gray. It's what their top three drivers of IT strategy were in 2023. So you'll notice that generally most of them added greater speed and agility to their response. It's kind of hard to see, but there's also a huge kind of spike here of people who put as their top priority product proposition, innovation, or enhancement. And I think we can kind of bundle AI and machine learning components into that. But what essentially, in my opinion, I think that means is that as budgets go up, which we would expect in 2024, they more or less have to meet increasing need of customers, right? So as a financial services institution, you're looking at your customer base, you're trying to build customer trust. Customers expect for you to have digital banking assets. They just do. So those products for either a digital banking app, being able to open an account remotely via your cell phone or on the computer, something as simple as that, something that could be even more complex. But that's an expectation now for a lot of customers. And so as financial institutions think about that, they have to keep pace. And so in order to do that, they have to spend more money on technology. And so part of this is external forces. Obviously, coming out of COVID, I think a lot of banks, a lot of credit unions found out the hard way that they didn't have the right digital, banking assets in place, digital products in place to cater to their customers when all of a sudden their customers couldn't come into a branch in order to take care of a task or service. So they had to quickly respond to that. But the banks that did have those digital assets in place were able to take advantage of market share and start growing their customer base. And so because of that external force, as well as us coming out of COVID-19 and kind of thinking about where we want to go, with how we interact with our customers on the financial services side, budgets have to go up. They just do. And so part of that is a natural recurring phenomenon because of where the economy is going, because again, mainly coming out of COVID, but also just to meet increasing demand. And so I think that popped up late. Yeah. So we can look at the respondents broke down geographically across the globe. I put that bubble up just because I know that most of us are working and operating in North America right now, but it is interesting to see the context of how other regions around the world are kind of looking at that. But yeah, I'm just curious, like Cornerstone or anyone else, are you guys experiencing kind of a similar, maybe from like a CISO or CTO or something like that? Are you experiencing kind of a similar mindset of like, we need to invest more in technology and rapid application development or anything like that? What are your executives saying right now?
It's keeping up in the market. You know, you got people with like your Zells and your fully digital platforms. Brick and mortar's kind of going away, obviously with COVID and this. So
yeah,
be more modular and be more modular and be quicker about everything.
Yeah, interesting. Has anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we literally just finished an implementation for a new online account opening software for that specific reason. That's had a lot of traction, and we're like putting money into like trying to get the word out to our customers that we do have a lot of these tools available now that we didn't have available a couple of years ago. Yeah. So we're like spending, marketing dollars on creating training videos for our customers, like how to do a mobile deposit, how to add a bill pay, like the simplest of functions just to like, put that word out there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's definitely been a shift.
And kind of on that note, at least what I've seen is there's an increased focus on how we can better cater to customers in a digital experience. But sometimes like the internal support structure of that is lacking. And so a bank, how many times did we talk about how kludgy our core systems feel inside of the bank or, whatever. And same with like an LOS. And we were talking about how the capabilities like APIs, that you mentioned earlier are lacking. Do you feel like that there's a focus on modernizing any of that? Oftentimes that project, I think you said this, is like 2 years minimum to think about modernizing a core or something like that. Have you heard any conversations in your respective institutions about not only modernizing or seeing how we can accelerate the digital roadmap for our customers, but the systems inside of the bank or the credit union that are also supporting the bank itself?
There's a lot of,
No, go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of focus on like automation and efficiency on those back-end programs. Because the programs we have in place aren't bad, but the time and like labor intensive.
Totally.
And the more we have these larger projects, the more that those small menial tasks take away. So a big focus has been that kind of like automation and making it easier not only on members but also the employees.
Absolutely.
We started a 2-year project that was literally named Digital Application Enhancement. It was all about streamlining the onboarding of the accounts or LOS or whatever, both externally and internally.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's great. So it seems like generally you all feel like this is in line with what your own personal experience is at your respective institutions. Cool. Okay, so next report is where those technology priorities were in 2023. We have it broken down kind of into the main, what's the word for quadrant, but for 3 sectors? I don't know. Categories. Yeah, that works. So you can see them kind of broken down into those 3 categories where, again, hot off the press, things like artificial intelligence, you're going to see in the top half. You're going to see things like advanced analytics and machine learning. That's going to be technology, obviously, that's benefiting the people that are servicing your customers. But then AI is really taking that, a step further. But that's generally the summary. And I would also say workflow automation, as something that's part of that as well. It's come up in a bunch of different contexts time and time again today, but how do we automate all of the steps that go into processing a loan, that go into marketing to a prospective customer, getting them to open an account, so that's the salesperson interaction, the actual process for doing that. All of that is a huge part of the process. And it takes a lot of, people hours if you don't have the systems in place to help make that easy. And even just administering those systems is work in and of itself, even if you have a lot of automation in place. And so those are the priorities for 2023. How does that translate into the state of the customer here? So. Yeah, generally a reflection of similar data here. So kind of splitting that along where inside of the organizations those product investment priorities are going to be. This is kind of what we were talking about a second ago. And sorry in the back, you can't see this. I'm trying to break it down a little bit. But corporate digital channels are obviously the first category. I don't think that surprises anybody. Trade services, supply chain finance, client lifecycle. So that's the CRM and the onboarding component. That has been going up. So that wasn't number 3 on the list a few years ago, I can tell you that. So people are thinking more and more about the data, getting that 360-degree view of your customer. Payments modernization, I would expect that something like that to the Zelle point or something is going to continue to go up as well. So even as we look at this data in 24 and beyond, that's going to be a huge focus. But a lot of the things we talked about today are definitely, at least industry-wide, aligned with the focuses that we see in the industry. And I know that this is a financial services dance here, but for those of you who aren't in financial services, are you seeing something similar in your respective organizations as well in terms of, where you feel like your IT teams or executive leadership are wanting to invest in technology? Yes. Cool. Yes. Awesome. Okay. So we talked about the state of the banking industry itself. Financial services industry, what does this look like for your respective customers, and how do we translate that into effective customer engagement? I'll try and keep the Creatio pitch to a minimum here. So again, this is data that we build with a lot of our partners and everything here, but 71% of consumers, a bank or a financial institution's customers, expect personalization from banks, and 76 of those consumers get frustrated when they don't receive it. So again, that's table stakes. So how am I interacting with my financial institution online? Do they know it's me? If I submit a case, or I'm even talking to a chatbot via an app or something, do I have to submit the same information 6 times before I'm actually talking to an actual case representative, or can I even get that resolved without needing to talk to anyone? A lot of that is now an expectation of a customer. 72% of customers want to be helped immediately. I think that, again, shouldn't be surprising. That's how we all interact with everything in our lives. I mean, even just imagine not having internet connection on an airplane. Oh, can you imagine? So we expect those kind of things, right? Immediate service. That's also going to be the case with our banks as well. 53% of financial customers would switch providers for a better digital experience. Case in point, I mean, I know a number of people I've talked to, that have made a change to a different bank because of a better digital experience. And so that's absolutely on the forefront of customers' mind. So the main reward is customer trust. So when we invest in these products that are going to enable us to automate workflow, that are going to enable us to accelerate in terms of digital production, so how we create products and then the systems that are supporting us in creating those. So as you know, one of Creatio's bread and butter pitches is you don't need to rely on developers to do this thing. That's how we beat Salesforce in those types of conversations, right? If you're deploying a CRM and you are so reliant on like a proprietary development language or a team in order to make a configuration change or do anything, and it could take weeks or months, especially if it's not a customer-facing initiative, good luck getting it done at all. That's our whole thing. It's like we can empower knowledge workers in order to better handle all of these things, which translates, we think, into that customer trust idea. But this is just a reflection of that same data. I have direct deposit set up at a bank. So higher than average digital trust respondents versus lower than average digital trust respondents. So I guess that would be people who are hesitant, I guess, to get online with their banks. But would I open my next account or product with this bank if they had that? And the payment card I use more often is also issued with this bank. So how high trust and low trust U.S. digital banking users perceive and interact with their bank? All in all, like we're expecting that trust, we're expecting that engagement, and how we are engaging with those banks is going up as well. So in summary, like how do we build trust with those customers, productive and empowered employees? If you guys can attest to that as being members of that particular category there. If you feel like you have the information at your fingertips to better interact with the customer, your branch staff does, it's going to make their jobs better, and it's going to make their ability to interact with those customers better as well. Transparent and efficient workflows. And so that could also involve integrating with various external systems, consistent and personalized communication. So back to the point we were talking about earlier, I don't only want to interact with my bank online. I want them to know it's me whenever I pick up the chatbot or whatever else. So that personalization, or maybe a personalized recommendation of the next product based on my previous behavior with the bank, all of that plays a factor. So how do we think about the capabilities to drive trust for now? And so look at the next few slides. Again, we could just as easily say this is like Creatio Pitch 101. I don't want to look at these slides that way. I think we can change the narrative a little bit and look at it as more of like, okay, we're thinking about our investment priorities for 2024. How do we translate that into building customer trust? This is how we think that you could use your existing Creatio technology stack in order to do that. So thinking about some of those workflows. So personalization and relevance, thinking about case management, how we could use a lot of the AI capabilities that we talked about today to get quicker in responding to customers and doing that in a more informed basis. Consultation and product recommendations. Again, that's a business word for AI, like product recommendations, how we're, confidently recommending a next product for a salesperson to go to a prospective customer with. That's an AI-driven recommendation. Agility, transparency, and speed of resolutions. Again, getting the case management. Megan said that all of her customers, in the financial services sector earlier, want case management and they want lead management. That's just what they expect, right? So this is all playing into that too. So ability to be able to do that well and then seamless workflows and a slick experience. I think I heard someone else say they didn't go with Salesforce because the user experience in Creatio in this case was a lot easier to use. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. So capabilities to drive trust for the future. Again, just a summary, employees with the focus solely on value-adding tasks. I spent a decent amount of time in the security industry myself, but that single pane of glass term I'm so tired of. So I need to make sure that is not on at least slides that I use it. But you guys that makes sense, right? So even how you're communicating with maybe branch staff or even external, we could do that all in the same window without having to click into umpteen million different systems, make life so much easier. Introduce changes, deploy new workflows in days. So that's the whole enabling your knowledge workers to be able to do that, and low dependency on external vendors and resources in order to do that. So giving you the right training, academy, knowledge hub, all of that to be able to effectively administer these various platforms. So this is kind of a summary of that. Have you guys seen this slide before as I kind of build it out? Let me know if you have, if you've seen Creatio do this before. But this is a really interesting thing. So roughly, according to recent study, I want to say that there's 25 million software developers available worldwide right now. And that's decently grown. I think in 2014, when Creatio started, it was like at 18 million. So it's growing at a pretty good clip. But if you think about not only the applications that those developers have to maintain now, but just on what we talked about, the expectation to develop new applications, the demand for net new applications is in the 500 million range for digital applications across the world here. That's a huge resource imbalance, right? So we're thinking, okay, we need to invest in digital acceleration. The biggest bottleneck to be able to do that is software developers. Like they're brilliant people and we need them, but they already have so much work to do. And so in order to achieve what our strategic objectives are as an institution, we have to start thinking about enabling different resources. And that's where we can start bringing to bear or empowering the 1.7 billion knowledge workers out there. So what if instead of every time I needed to make a workflow change or even adjust the name of a field on a page, I could do it myself instead of having to submit a ticket and having a developer do it for me? That could take so much longer. So that plus building your own workflows, having a nice way to govern all of that. That's kind of the concept of what we go to market with at Creatio, right? Is what do we do? How can we flip the script, empower knowledge workers to own their own workflows and applications instead of being so reliant on development help? So that whole no-code concept is ultimately what we're driving for. But this can extend, if we kind of go backwards through the presentation, all the way to the idea of customer trust. If we can enable knowledge workers to own their own automation, that's going to translate into you being able to bring products to market quicker, and it's going to enable you to build that customer trust across the board. Cool. So we've already looked at a lot of these slides. Let me see if there's anything here that else I want to show you. Do you guys have any questions while I bring this up? There are some questions on licenses and use cases. Some of them are highlighted here, but this is just kind of a quick example of what that looks like. Here's an example of kind of that multifaceted customer journey for a bank or credit union that we've kind of talked about, and where you can start bolting in those various digital workflows. So marketing to sales to the front office, loan officers getting engaged in the lending process, sending that to underwriting, general customer experience management. So that's going to be, cases and task management, things like that. And then underlying, compliance requirements. So how are we keeping that whole workflow compliant? And then the employees that are operating in these workflows, how are we keeping them happy and informed of how we're doing all of this? So this is just an example of how we're thinking about it and how we're going to build, how we continue to build workflows to kind of meet the demands of financial services. So that kind of example customer. Is this relevant at all? Are you guys kind of, as you're thinking about your digital workflows for your internal teams, that kind of how you're thinking about it, kind of cross channel like that?